Monkeyman, a great action movie with a tired, overdone storyline. As a standalone action, it's pretty great. It's everything the genre is supposed to be. It's fast paced, entertaining, and it's got a great protagonist that we can root for. But Monkeyman isn't striving to be just another action movie, and its attempt to do something more is where it falls short, in my opinion. Let's first discuss what I liked about the movie. Number one, the protagonist. I'm going to be calling him Bobby just for review's sake. I know that he's anonymously named the kid in the credits, but going forward, I'll be calling him Bobby. So, Dev Patel's character Bobby. I thought Patel really conveyed the tortured soul, the man who's still this little boy inside watching his mother die over and over again. Because of his solid acting and expressive eyes that really showed just how tortured he was, I was really convinced that Bobby was going to stop at nothing to kill the people who killed his mother. I usually don't love it when directors are also the main characters in their own movies, but I can admit that he did some really great acting and he played his role very well. Next, the fighting sequences. They were just so unbelievably bloody and everyone's fighting dirty, and I really enjoyed watching that. I mean, one guy gets his brains bashed on a toilet seat. In another scene, Bobby stabs someone in the neck using his teeth to push the blade in. Another scene, someone's nose is getting bit off. I mean, it doesn't have extreme gore or anything like that. People aren't getting their arms and limbs cut off necessarily, but I liked the brutality of the fight scenes. It really pulls the audience in and makes us believe that, yes, this is a fight to the death. And everyone in this movie is fighting to survive, and their actions really convey that. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the fight scenes did feel a bit choreographed, but I felt like there was enough spontaneity in it that I really enjoyed watching them. Number two, the camera work was great. I didn't feel like I was just passively sitting there while two people are going at it. No, I felt like I was, moving and bobbing and weaving right along with them. The camera was almost always moving around. It's barely stationary, which I thought was great, and it added to the urgency of these scenes, especially during the chase sequences. Now, this next part deals with how Monkeyman tried to be more than just a purely action movie, and I talk about more of my criticisms. But before the criticism, I did really enjoy the elements of Hindu stories. I thought the Hanuman storyline was pretty interesting. It added another layer to the story, and it connected Bobby with his mother in an innovative way. I also loved seeing the imagery throughout the this and it was cool to see how Hanuman influenced him as he grew from a young boy to a determined fighter in a ruthless underground ring. This is number 4. Next one. The sheer amount of flashbacks. Oh my gosh. We did not need that many flashbacks. I thought it was cool that at the beginning we didn't get the whole story of how his mom died and we're kind of shown his messy hands. We're left wondering how it happened. Then later on in the movie we finally get a flashback as to how his hands got all messed up. That was cool. But the constant happy mother, happy son flashbacks where they're moving through the trees and oh my gosh, they're playing hide and seek in the forest. Those flashbacks just felt like they were trying to force us to feel this emotional connection to Bobby and his mom that I just didn't feel. It came off as, when the movie is about a guy seeking revenge for his dead wife and they keep showing flashbacks of like the wife and the husband's recording her and she's like shy of the camera and it's always a slow-mo and there's always this like hazy white aura around the now dead wife, and that's what it felt like. I wanted to tell them, you don't have to force us to feel bad for him. We already do. The constant flashbacks just felt like overkill. Another thing that I didn't really love was that the political critique was surface level. Yes, we get to see that the elites are using power and influence to treat the poor abysmally, but there wasn't enough discussion of how they're actually doing it. Through money laundering, through exploitation of workers, give me a little bit more. Yes, they show, the prostitution, and there's quick blurbs about how the factory workers are being placed in dangerous work environments. We got to see those fancy parties that they're at. There's also a lot of news story type clips showing people fleeing police brutality, but I wanted to know the details behind the corruption. I do want to note that after watching this movie, I read that they used real video footage of protests in India. So that's a decision that I really respect. And I also want to note that because this isn't an indie film, everyone on the project is beholden to Universal Pictures and what they ultimately want. So they may have limited him on how far he was able to go regarding addressing corruption. I know that this city is a fictional city, I believe, but come on, we know that this is it's a Mumbai-esque city, so we think about India when we watch this movie. And so, since India's political climate is pretty precarious right now, those who were at the top in Universal Pictures may not have wanted to offend anyone, so that could have been why they didn't have any more detail on the corruption, but my point still stands. Now, this was something I really disliked: the wise teacher plotline. There's a part of the movie where Bobby is taken in by the outcasts in this city. This small group of outcasts consists of people who are non-gender conforming, and as a result, they are routinely beaten by authorities and pushed to the outskirts of the city. That was all pretty interesting, and it was a unique way to transition from the high-paced chase scene that occurred before he was taken in by these people. The only thing I really didn't like was that within this group, there's a sudden appearance of a woman. I'm gonna say woman because this person was female presenting on the screen. We don't really know this person's pronouns, but I'm gonna say woman for the sake of this review. This woman appears who was the embodiment of the wise teacher role. She seems to know everything about him from just one glance, and basically she becomes a kind of spiritual guide for him. She gives him this kind of psychedelic drug that's meant to open his mind and show him the way and help him become the man that he needs to be. It was just so boring that I sighed when I saw it. This random mystical mentor suddenly helps him become hyper-focused and stronger and opens his mind. It was just lazy writing, in my opinion, that this person just plops into his lap and, gives him this drug that can suddenly help him become this great fighter. I don't know. I just thought it was lazy. And finally, the revenge plots. In this story, Bobby is seeking revenge on all of the people that were involved in the death of his mother. And that's fine. A story in which someone is trying to avenge a family member or a dear friend, those usually make audiences feel like they really want to root for the protagonist. I understand why it was done. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still something that we've seen before 100 times. I mean, how many of these revenge stories have we seen? John Wick, Payback, The Equalizer. It's just there's been so many, and if you're gonna do that kind of thing, I think it needs to be amazing. I think it needs to be elevated in some way, and unfortunately, Monkeyman didn't do that much to stand out in this genre. Ultimately, it really tried to be something more, and in my opinion, I just don't think it succeeded in that regard, but it was still a pretty solid action movie, and I believe it will be one of my favorites in this genre.